But look at the real world. How many lies do we believe every single day?
Every day, yeah.
You know what I mean? How much crap do we get fed by the news or whatever? That's just
this one simple trick.
Yeah, it is one little kernel of truth surrounded by sensationalism.
Game companies hate this one. Banks don't want you to know. Car
manufacturers don't want you to know.
Don't want you to know. Episode 9, brother.
Episode 9.
Vendor trash coming at you.
I'm just gonna repeat everything you say this episode.
Me too.
Just
me too. We got a lot to talk about. Quite a few topics to discuss and discourse about.
I'm always down for talking about contracts. I think they're the most cheesable thing that's going to be in this game.
Yeah.
I would love to say that SBS knows exactly what they're doing. I have a feeling that contracts is going to be a broken thing through the alpha and beta.
I mean, that's what they're for, right? Is the alpha and beta?
No. I'm not saying that it'll get to the end. I'm just saying and this is coming from my ignorance about what they do behind the scenes, is that all I can just sit here and think of a million ways that I can work those contracts to my advantage.
Abuse the contract system?
Yeah, just abuse the shit out of them. And I'm hoping that they're doing the same thing. You know, once they get this thing going, they're like, okay, how can we abuse this? And then when the alpha starts and they actually put them into the alpha, there's going to be that moment where they're like, damn, we never thought of that.
It is raining buckets, like literally buckets. Like,
you want to put this off?
No. I'm just telling people, if you hear the thunder and it's
I see what you're saying.
Rolling thunder being picked up by the microphone. Like, if you like rain, this is like the perfect, like, curl up with a cup of coffee and write a book weather. So anyway, not to digress, it just cracked in the background, and wanted to give the listeners.
Basically, we're going to be recording through this thunderstorm. Just be aware.
We're not adding ambient sounds. That's all nature.
But no, contracts.
Contracts.
Dug up a little bit of information about taxes and how the contracts work on them.
Yeah, there was a big long post discussing that how to do the contracts, especially like a king down to a landowner. You know, you have to pay taxes on your land. And then the people who build... Dude.
Yeah, that sounded like it was in your backyard.
No doubt. The people that build businesses on that land, they have to pay taxes to the person who owns the land. And onward and upward, and all this is governed by contracts.
When there is a contract made for taxes, it will not be percentages. So you cannot tax someone for 10% of their profit. You have to give them a solid number. Percentages
involves, either A, the person paying the percentage is being honest and saying, I made 100 widgets and I owe you 10%, so here's your money from 10 widgets worth of sales. And they're just honest. Or you got to go in and audit, which that's like, and Caspian said it best in his thing, is that's just a overhead. So that's just a headache they don't want to deal with. And that encourages me, that the fact that they're saying, look, we're going to limit this because we understand how out of hand it can get. So their approach to it is already, percentages are hard to enforce, so it's going to be a flat fee. In other words, here's your contract for your shop. You're going to owe me 5 gold a month. Easily enforceable.
What I see coming from the no percentages thing is contracts will have limited runs.
Agreed.
Because if somebody opens up a shop and agreed to pay the landowner, 5 gold a week, 3 months down the road, that shop's pulling in, hundreds of gold more than it originally they thought. The landowner is going to want to renegotiate because he's going to want more of that money.
Sure.
So he's not going to get locked into a single contract for a long period of time. He's going to make sure that and see the way, or keep track of the way things are going.
In some way, shape, or form. And he's going to want to renegotiate that contract. And the landowner is going to want higher money. And then, of course, the shop owner is going to want to keep money. And that's going to create drama as they negotiate their contract.
And that's why I say if you just give a time limit on the contract, then when time comes around for the renegotiation, the landowner holds all the cards in that point because he can just kick the guy off the land. There's nothing stopping him from doing that, I don't think. But at the same time, you want those thriving businesses on your land, so you don't want to be too forceful about it.
No, and it creates the drama of, do you want to hide some of your profits? Do you want to appear to be less profitable than you are?
Right. All right. So no percentages on contracts.
Flat fees. And the biggest takeaway, like I said, is the fact that they're trying to keep it as simple as possible. And that's their approach to it. So,
No, and as long as that stays their driving goal, and let's be clear, they don't want this game bogged down any more than we do.
no one wants to play contract writing of Elyria.
Right. So I imagine that when it's all said and done, some of it might be irritating. When you're dealing with stuff like contracts, there's always going to be a small irritation factor. But as long as it's kept to a minimum, I think it'll work just fine.
Agreed. Like no one wants to do book. I say no one. Some people probably thrive on it. The accountant types that just love.
Well, yeah, but you're talking about that Duke or that Baron. I mean, I bet you they're going to be worried about it a lot.
No, it's going to be part of the game is keeping track of the bookkeeping, and the ones that excel at it are going to have probably more successful kingdoms. The ones that excel at making it what's the word? Beneficial to the signee and the signer. Those places are going to thrive, and then the ones that micromanage and choke out the people with their contracts, people are going to look for greener pastures.
These are true governmental problems.
You get to play them.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do we keep these businesses thriving, but at the same time, how do we bleed them for every penny possible?
I mean, some kingdoms or areas, settlements are going to turn into like the Chronicle of Elyria's version of the DMV with paperwork, and you need to sign Form 241B, sir.
6 months. 6 months into the game, some kingdom will be Detroit.
Oh, snowed under. Just snowed under with just paperwork. No, it'll be interesting to see because I'm sure it'll evolve too. It'll start out as, okay, well, hey, just make a contract for this. Make a contract for this. That'll be perfect. Okay, everything's running great. And then they see it just keeps on layering and layering.
It's just more they keep adding on. You've seen those the patents and things from the old medieval times?
Patents?
Feudal times, yeah. Your the thing that shows who you descend from to prove your nobility.
Right.
And it starts off as, the one sheet of papyrus paper or the scroll, whatever, rolled up.
Right.
And then, somebody's born, and so they have to tack something on. And they when they run out of paper, then they start using like candle wax or whatever to add more paper to it.
Just super.
So you unroll it, and then you unfold all the paper, and it's just all this garbage. All right. Terraforming has reared its ugly head again. It seems to, like, every week, I've noticed. It was a very hard thing for people to wrap their heads around.
Well, it was one of the...
People want to pick up a lot of earth and move it somewhere else.
No, they want to shape the land.
Yes, they want to terraform.
They want to knock down hills and build other hills.
Right.
And it's not in this game.
Right. Now, Caspian has mentioned a couple times, I don't have any hard things to cite, but I just remember reading him say that things like moats are constructible.
And that's where it gets confusing for people, I think, because if they're like, well, if I can build a moat, then I can tear down a hill.
I think the key word is build. You can't dig a moat. You can't take a shovel, go out in your front yard and build and dig your moat, right? But you can take a blueprint and lay it on the ground, and when the construction is done, a moat will be there.
Right.
I think that's the difference.
Yeah, because although that is terraforming technically, it's terraforming according to a blueprint.
Right. You are sticking with an assigned blueprint. Now, can people use that to their advantage to do something specific? Possibly.
If they can, they will.
The point is you cannot just go out with your tools and pick up a bunch of earth and leave a hole and move it somewhere else. That's not going to be in the game. From what's been said, that is not in the game.
But tunneling is.
And
so that's where it also gets confusing yet again.
It does get confusing.
So you can take your shovel out and create a tunnel. But no, I think it was Snipe Hunter who was discussing this, and it was just talking about sending deformations from the client or from the server to the client and keeping track of that deformation and all the clients that would have to be involved.
Oh, yeah.
And the server resources involved in terraforming is just massive on scale. And
there's a reason why heavy Minecraft servers are slideshows, because you got 20 people running around just completely annihilating mountains, and that wrecks the server. And then it's trying to feed all that information back to all the clients. That's a bad deal just in that stupid little voxel game.
No, that has nothing.
In a fully 3D rendered
Unreal 4 /
right.
All the data that's tied to every item, and it's a nice.
But the tunneling thing might be a lot like the moat thing, because tunneling is not just necessarily digging a hole. You are shoring up the sides so they don't collapse, right?
Sure. So you have to apply a blueprint. Like, okay, we're going to extend this tunnel this way.
Maybe it is some type of blueprint thing where you're digging a tunnel is actually you're throwing a blueprint on it. That's completely
guessing. I would be 100% okay with that. I think that sounds like a great plan.
But yeah, that's the way I see when they say that you can tunnel and you can build a moat, but you cannot terraform. That's the only way I can see that they could do it. The other thing that they talked about was if you do pull out your shovel and start digging, and I'm guessing this has something to do with farming, because in order for a recipe, blueprint, whatever you want to call it, it might require you to put dirt in there. So dirt might be something you have to gather. And from what I read in that thing, they made dirt sound like a node.
I don't know if it's so much a node, so much as you reckon, like, I don't know if dirt's actually a thing you want to collect, but that was the example used. I don't know why people would want to collect dirt, other than moving soil with certain nutrients, I guess. But it was about, you can recognize something that's worth gathering and you can gather it. But I don't know if it's actually a node so much as these are the properties that exist here, because they're putting properties to everything.
Right.
Like the soil in a given area has properties.
Well, we know, as an example, we know that it's been said in the last couple days that if you chop down a tree, it can fall and hit someone and do damage.
No, that's something that's been confirmed.
I don't know if it's been confirmed. It's something that Blues were talking about in Discord.
Gotcha.
I think they said that was their goal.
Okay.
So that erases the node thing, I think, because if you're just going and beating on a tree and getting your stuff out of it, it won't fall down. But if you go to chop down a tree and it falls down and then you harvest it, two different things.
Huh.
So I wasn't quite sure on the soil and terraforming conversation what they meant by, if you dig in the ground, you could pick up some dirt and it might change color to let you know that it's been dug already, but it's not actually going to change the landscape.
Right. It might be a little...
I'm with you. I'm not 100% certain why someone would need to pick up dirt. They may have been answering a hypothetical question.
Right.
With hypothetical answers.
Because I want dirt, damn it.
I want dirt.
All right. Training animals. This has come up in Discord over and over, especially over the last week. I've seen the discussion like 2 or 3 times. Evolution and training of animals and how much control the players are going to have. I think someone asked directly, can you tame a Canis rabbit? Can you domesticate the Canis rabbit?
Well, train and domesticate, two completely different things. Do you disagree?
No, because, yes, you train it to domesticate it, I guess. So.
A dog is domesticated. A dog is born with its innate DNA already predisposed to, being around human, whereas a wolf is not, right?
With you so far.
That's what I'm saying, the difference between training and domesticating. You get a wolf pup, you can train it to be okay with people, but the next set of puppies you're going to have to train too. And it takes generations and generations to domesticate that wolf into, something that's just born a pet. Anyway, what I'm saying is that I don't doubt that you can train an animal. I don't know if you can train a wild animal.
That's what I'm saying. An actual feral, the Caspian came out straight up and said you're not going to tame a Canis rabbit. They're too wild and too feral to be.
Well, and I think that's the point of the conversation they were having, is that there's, training and domesticating, not the same thing. And the actual ability to train that animal, that wild animal, I'm guessing he's saying is not going to be in the game.
Well, I mean, maybe I don't know. They have traits, and they're using I think they said they're using the Trison as the baseline because it is a wild animal that can be trained for war.
Okay.
And that's the baseline. And there's traits that you can affect on the animals through breeding. But go with that, and so you can
I'm getting mixed signals here.
That's what I'm saying, is they have a baseline. I think there's like is there a stat on every animal, like on the Canis rabbit? Let's say it's feralness. I don't know a better, wildness.
Right.
Is a 10, and there's just no way you can lower a 10.
Well, what is the lifespan of a Canis rabbit anyway?
Again, you got me on that one.
I mean, I'm just curious.
I don't know.
Rabbits don't live very long, right? 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, but the Canis rabbit is. I
Something
don't.
way different.
I don't know, dude. Again. Let's say it lives 4 years. That's 4 weeks of game time. If someone wanted to spend 4 weeks training a Canis rabbit and breeding it, I don't know. They have to have some sort of switch that says trainable, untrainable.
Right. Well, to dig into the guts of it, the point that they were trying to make is that in order to train an animal, to get them into the domesticated category requires a lot of extra animation work for that animal.
Yes.
And if they do that for every animal that they're going to put into the game, it's going to be unwieldy. That's what I took away from that conversation.
No, and that's where I go back to. They're going to have a switch. Yes, it's trainable. No, it's not trainable. And then the animations and the resources required to make it trainable will be tied to the ones that are trainable. And discovering which ones are is going to be half the fun. There's going to be people trying to train Canis rabbits, I'm sure, and getting ripped apart.
I'll get eaten by the dillo bear when I go up to it and try to make it my mount.
Make it your friend.
I want to be friends.
I want to be friend.
So, long story short, some animals can be trained. Some can't.
And the game is going to last 500 years from launch to the end of the 10-year. And maybe they have plans to go beyond the 10-year shark, but it's planned from the get-go to go 500 years. 500
But the
Elyria
game's also
years.
going to start with a plethora of domesticated animals already.
Sure. So it's not like we need to go out and figure out which ones can be domesticated.
Right. We're not, yeah.
Not starting at zero.
So there's already going to be our beasts of burden. There's going to be our pets. And I realize there's a lot of people out there, they just want to go grab whatever's fuzzy and bring it home with them. Because that happens in real life too.
No doubt. Not doesn't have to be fuzzy. They can be scaly. They can be feathery.
But the Blues have stated that there's only so many animals that they can let us do that without, completely bogging the game down.
Sure. I'm trying to think, how many animals do they need in this game? Outside question, off topic, on topic. Like I'm just trying to think, I'm thinking to WoW and EQ and things like that. Like WoW really didn't have that much fauna.
Yeah, but you can't. It's really hard to talk about the amount of fauna that WoW had when they are just respawning.
Just mobs. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nodes and respawns. I get that. I'm just saying to make
This game's supposed to have Chronicles of Elyria is supposed to have an ecosystem, right?
correct. That's
A functioning ecosystem.
So how many animals are needed to create the illusion of a functioning ecosystem?
I would not even begin to know.
But I'm saying that's my thing is 100 animals.
You have to break it down by biome, right?
Right. And they did say that they are modifying animals for looks in different biomes, which is another part of the resources.
I was just saying, if there's a specific animal, let's say there's some kind of deer that lives in this specific biome.
Okay.
That deer requires, it eats a certain kind of food. That's why it lives there.
Sure.
And then it's going to have predators. Does it have one predator? Does it have two predators?
That's where I'm
How
getting
fast
at.
does it propagate?
How many do you need to make it seem the illusion of a living world? Like
It's really hard to go back in time. Just talking about our world.
No, that's all we have to base things off of.
And to imagine, what was the wildlife like in, 500 AD in England or France. I mean, it's tough for us to understand that because we grew up in a world where the animals are pushed to the fringe.
Sure.
And to the point of extinction. So we don't see them as much as they would have back then. I mean, every once in a while you hear about, a wolf or a bear coming into a populated area.
Yeah, the bears in the swimming pools.
But you go back that far, and packs of wolves might drag people off weekly.
So, but I mean, you need wolves. Obviously, you need some hunting cats. You need some deer.
Right.
Bears are obviously in the game of some sort. So there's four. I mean, and the thing is, you take a deer and you need it in different biomes. You know what I'm saying? So you got your standard stag, like medieval. I don't know what to say. I'm not a deer hunter. Like your standard whitetail buck.
So, yeah, you'll have your whitetail deer. You'll have your.
You take that model and you throw some fur around its neck and put it in the tundra. You slim it up and you put straighter horns on it. You can put it in the desert,
like gazelles or.
Yeah.
wildebeests.
That's what I'm saying. If you, how many tiers do you need? You know, like, and that's what I'm saying is kind of just spitballing. How many tiers do you need? You need your lowest, you know, your small vermin.
Right, your rats.
I mean, they got bees running around pollinating plants, so it's just, it's just a lot. And so, if you start with the bees, the insect kingdom, and then move up from there. So, what eats the insects? You got your vermin and whatnot.
Just to keep their ecosystem working, the bees is a great example. That's a bug that we know of that's going to be in the game. That is one insect that we know will be a functioning thing in the game.
Correct.
Do they need more than that? I mean, do they want locusts eating our crops? Is that something they want to put in the game?
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean?
No, I'm with you.
Or do they want mosquitoes sucking down your stamina?
Spreading malaria.
Spreading malaria.
Do they want it? Probably. But, because that's story and drama.
Right,
how much
but
of
the
it's
reality
fun.
is that will the game be fine without them?
Right. And that's really what I'm saying is how much do you need to be, is just bees enough to be realistic? Like that's, like, is it representative enough of the insect kingdom and they just represent it with bees and everything's cool?
If they make one deer and give it 5 different skins for 5 different biomes, I'm not going to be disappointed by that.
Same.
You know what I mean?
No, even if they went with a small deer, large, you got like a deer and then like an elk, and then you spread them out through the biomes and with 5 skins, boom, that's enough.
But they all run on one script.
One AI and then different biomes.
And the only difference is that, this script says that they tend to stay in this biome or close to it. And that's the only difference between them aside from the way they look. I'm okay with that. That doesn't bother me.
They eat
I don't
this
have
food.
to have I don't have to have 5 totally separate, completely different deer in a game. That's not going to bug me at all.
Well, you just look at Skyrim and they had one deer. And again, it didn't have a living ecosystem. So it was just.
But no, I don't think they need a ton of different. They might have a few animals that are skinned differently.
And they could even put rarity on them, like a big bucks, or just quality. They could even put a quality on it. And
now if you put a quality on them, that's way more important to me
and it's
than
just
having different breeds.
It doesn't even have to be a different skin to see a quality. It's just if you're a hunter and you know the deer, you're an expert on it, you can look at them and get a rating, and that's completely behind the scenes in the numbers.
Yeah. No, just to answer your question, I don't think they need a lot.
So, but not a lot. That's all right. I'm trying to pin you down to a number because I'm trying to sit here and pick a number in my head. What would be good? Is 30? Because if you give 5 skins to each one, that's 150 different animals. I mean, I'm just...
If you had 30 animals, and even if each one of them only had 2 skins spread out over the entire world...
Right.
Would people really notice?
I would have never noticed in any other game, so I think that's enough, honestly. Just that few is enough.
I mean, you live in this one part of the world where, deer are plentiful, and it's actually part of the economy and the local ecosystem that people go out, hunt deer, bring back the pelts, the meat, whatnot. And you go to another part of the world where they might see one deer and be like, ooh, there's a deer. They don't see them all the time. I mean, they're going to get it's the same animal, and it's treated differently in 2 different places because of its rarity or the biome they're in.
Sure. And the other part is the suspension of reality. I mean, you have to have some suspension of belief and say, yes, I only ever see this deer here, but I know there's a ton of other animals. It's just they're not important to the story or the world. And
then on top of that, they want to put in, monsters.
Yeah, fantastical creatures.
They want fantastical creatures as well.
Trisons and canis rabbits and dillo bears.
So that's why I say, if there's one deer, that would not break my immersion at all. If I went from one side of the world to the other, and the deer didn't look any different to me, that would not bother me.
Which they already are. I mean, they've already confirmed in one of the posts that the artists are working on modifying the models for the different biomes. And that may just be minor tweaks and stuff, but just that right there is enough detail to give you that. You know what I'm saying?
No, 30 animals with how many ever skins each? I think that would be plenty.
This seems like it to me too. And when you that's the reason I asked the question, because I was honestly going, you don't need that many to make the world seem alive.
I don't think so. No, it's more important that they interact with their environments, and it's more important that they are somewhat predictable.
I agree.
That's how humans hunt. Is we hunt on animals' predictability.
Yeah, here's the water, here's the food, here's
Right.
my hunting stand. The other part is the fewer the animals, the easier it is to balance the ecosystem,
Yeah.
and the less variables, because it's already
No,
going to be.
I agree, 100%. So what? 2 vermin. I mean, I don't know what they'd be. Rats and mice.
Right.
Then you've got your small hunters, your weasels, your badgers.
You got the omnivore versus herbivore versus carnivore. And we just talking just the carnivore chain going up.
Well, rats and mice kind of subsist on whatever they can get in their mouths.
Scavengers.
Whereas
You got your scavengers.
Weasels have to eat meat. They cannot digest vegetable matter.
So,
But I don't know if that's kind of stuff that's going to go into the game or not.
right. And truthfully, the bottom level, they can just say they can subsist on dirt. And so that they're always, you know what I'm saying? That we don't have to know what they actually subsist on.
We don't have to know what they eat at all. As long as their feet are touching the ground, they could be okay for a mouse.
And, you know, they don't have to put grubs in the game for
Right.
Yeah. And so the bottom level can be anything.
I don't know, man. Grubs and worms, if they're going to put fishing in the game, what do we use for bait if there's no grubs or worms?
But I don't know if they need grubs or worms I'm saying they don't have to actually be an entity so much as a property of soil.
Right. So you go take your shovel, you dig in the dirt,
you get your grubs and worms.
Get some worms.
Boom, full circle. You got grubs in your backpack. No, it seems like a simple system. I mean, honestly, when you really just sit there and talk it out. So, all right, paper making, scribes.
Wow, how deep is this? I would not have suspected that scribes would be such a big category.
Well, every time, and this is the thing, every time I read about something that SBS wants to do with Chronicles of Elyria, it makes me want to play that thing. I mean, you remember last podcast?
That is no doubt.
we went from wanting to be bards to snake oil salesmen to map makers to explorers to smiths, and I want to be all of them. And scribes
go ahead.
Is no exception when they explain out. And this is what I love about their approach to the game. It's like making paper, not a very exciting thing to do. You know, but it's very important to the world. So what do they have to do to make it where people want to do it? And that's where was it Snipe or Caspian? I think it was Snipe that broke it down and said, we're going to add a lot more to it, like bookbinding and illumination and contract writing, all going to be tied to the scrivener. Go ahead, bro. I didn't mean to stomp on you.
No, and honestly, I mean, in most games, you don't necessarily have to make something exciting as long as it can make money.
Right. I will do the most mundane things in the world if it moves me ahead in the game.
No, if I can make some coins making paper and I can, you know, nobody else wants to do it or it's boring, then I'm going to jump on that because people are going to buy the paper because it's important to the game. So the fact that they're adding even more on top of that makes me wonder if they're not doing too much.
That's always feature creep is a real deal. I mean, for any game developer trying to get their game out.
Right.
But I don't really think this is feature creep so much as they have a design list, a design doc that says we need these trade skills done, we need this done, which ones can we mash together, you know, and I think that's one of the things that's happening to Scribe is they're like, hey, I think maybe initially they had a scribe that made contracts and they had a paper maker that made paper. And then as the design doc has moved forward, they're like, hey, look, these ones go really well together. Let's just turn this into Chronicle of Elyria's. That's what a scribe is. Yeah.
No, and I agree with that. And I think they've even added cartography, right?
I'm not 100% on that, but that sounds, I don't know on that. I really don't.
I thought we talked about that or read it somewhere. Maybe not. But no, being a scribe is not just writing on paper or making paper. It is doing everything that involves paper, like you said, bookbinding or I can't think of the name of the race that has the paper armor, but it's going to be those people who make that armor.
The Toresk, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's their name or not, but
I would think it is the Toresk of the paper. Maybe. Don't quote us.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be, it's not a throwaway deal. Even if it's, it's not going to be like, yeah, we got a guy who makes paper. It's going to be like, wait a minute, what? There's a scribe in your group?
Well, and it goes back to the contracts we talked about earlier. The contracts are as layered through this game as they're planning to be. Then that may be the most important part of a paper maker is their ability to scribe contracts. And the complex one. The more variables you can put, the higher your scribe skill, the more variables you can put in a contract you write. The more techniques, as SBS likes to use.
I didn't even think about that. I don't think I've ever associated techniques with writing. That makes perfect sense now that you say it out loud.
So it'll be interesting. Again, every time we discuss something, it's like, it'll be interesting. Please make this game and have it out already.
No, I get what they're doing. They don't want a shortage of something. They don't want 1 million people cranking out, iron armor weapons, and one guy in one city
making paper
on the other side of the map making paper.
making paper. Making paper, baby, making paper. Dead kings on all this paper.
All of these trade skills need to be spread out to the point where everyone can take advantage of them. There's going to be a scribe in every town, at least one scribe.
Oh yeah, I think so completely.
There might be villages that don't have one, but that just means that they're going to have to go and get their contract stuff from that town.
Yeah, or an NPC will come in and fill that void, or
a player will. A player will come and say,
right.
"What? You have no scribe? Well, congratulations, I'm moving in."
And then he can start charging too much, more than it's worth because he's the only one, and then competition will breed another one. And
is it worth my time to go all the way to the town to get this paper and pay a few copper less, or do I just pay this guy his exorbitant prices?
Right. My parents live out away from the city on their own property, but there's a convenience store that's out there, and it's just every time I go there, I get so pissed because of how much more everything costs there. And it's not their fault. I mean, they're not gouging because they're offering it for the least amount, but it's just they have to. Yeah. Because of how far out they are and the supply and demand and everything else, and they're the only one. So hey, pay for it.
No, we went on that road trip, and basically along the Gulf Coast, all the little towns and things. And we stopped somewhere, and a Monster was $4.99 a can.
Damn.
I was like, holy crap!
Jesus, price gouge.
But there was nowhere else to get one, so I paid $4.99 for a Monster.
I want my Monster. So one of the more exciting things:
dragons,
baby. Can you make a fantasy game without dragons?
Let's skip this one and go on to the next.
Okay. Can you make a fantasy game without dragons? SBS.
Of course you can.
SBS's answer: no.
You'd be hard pressed to find somebody who loves dragons more than I do.
I agree.
But yes, you can make a fantasy game without dragons. You can write a fantasy book without dragons.
No, a fantasy book, no problem, because
fantasy can exist with no dragon.
I'm trying to think of a fantasy game without dragons.
I don't think I'm sure there is one.
I'm sure, without a doubt.
There has to be. Up until Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls games didn't have dragons.
They existed in the game.
Well, that's true. They did exist in lore. Okay. Never mind.
I'm just trying to think. I'm really not trying to put you on the spot as far as prove it. I'm saying I'm trying to think of one.
I didn't say they didn't exist. I said that you could do it. I'm not saying that they all don't have one, right?
No,
Is there a dragon in Zelda?
Oh yeah, there's the Hydra.
Is a Hydra a dragon?
Not really. I'm trying to think of the original Zelda.
Are you grasping at straws here?
But no, there's been many dragons in Zelda. I'm just gonna say, even though I've played so few of them. Just gonna say
it's more than I've played.
But no, back to SBS's answer. The answer is we have dragons. Like, we're going to know the myths and legends, not current lore and what actually happened. And so we're going to have the myths and legends as the backdrop. And then the discovery in the game is going to be what actually has occurred since and how that actually affects what happened to magic, what happened to dragons. Are there actually dragons in the game, or do they just exist in the lore?
Right.
And those kind of answers are the fun stuff to discover. And I think those discoveries are going to be world-shaping and shaking.
On the question of dragons specifically, I love the wording they used. The visual identity. Visual identity of a dragon will definitely be in this game. the creatures that up until this point they've been calling daemons,
right, are dragons,
will have the visual appearance of a dragon, effectively making them the dragons of this world.
Yeah, what we think of are dragons. And this is what I really think happened, is they're writing the cool lore of this world, and they were using daemons as a entities in this lore, and they hit a point where they said, wait a second, demons could be dragons, right? And someone said, that's a fucking brilliant idea. And now they're running with it, which I'm fine with, because they're writing this lore. It's not like this is... They're not breaking canon. They're creating canon, not breaking canon.
It doesn't matter to me where the dragons come from. You know what I mean?
Right.
I get that it's important to them because it's part of the lore. It's not overly important to me that there's this, wonderful backstory about where these creatures come from and why they look like a dragon.
Well, this is why I think, and this goes back to the story engine, which I think the more fleshed out they have, what they share with us, which is the myths and legends, right? And that's what we all know and accept as the truthful myths and not truth, just the truthful myths and legends. And it's what all the religions are going to be based off of in the world. The actual in-game religions, not player-made, but the actual in-game religions. And so for the story engine, I think it's very important that they understand everything from that point to...
No. I know that I'm not trying to downplay that lore is not important to me. I said earlier, I love it. I absorb
relish it.
Yeah. No, it's one of... I'm dig into it, and I love it. I'm just saying that we're going to call these things dragons. There's no way around that. The most interesting question I can think of is, how are these dragons going to interact with the world?
Well, for me, it's before that, do you think they will in the 10-year span of the game, do you think dragons will interact with the world?
I don't know.
Do you think they should?
Yes.
Okay. I'm making sure we're on the same page, because I think...
No, it would be a little bit disappointing if, sitting in the tavern one night and hear such and such a village in such and such far away kingdom
got raised
by a dragon.
Just
leveled. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because when you hear that, it should raise the hairs on the back of your neck, like, oh shit, there's a dragon just flying around,
And this is where I'm at, and I'm hoping this is where SPS is at, but this is completely conjecture. Standard caveat me and you have, which is, I love the fact they're creating a world and saying, here you guys go, you guys jump out in it and have fun. And the fact that they can create this world, and I think it can actually be made because they're not going through and just handcrafting a theme park to walk through that is perfectly balanced and all this stuff. They're just saying, here's the world, here's the rules, go have fun, go fuck it up. Right? And create stories and drama from that. With the story engine built onto it to give you purpose and all this other stuff, and an economy and contracts and everything else we've talked about. But all that being said, they would never have to put dragons in this game for it to be successful based off that. Just based off that, here's a world, here's the rules, go have fun. And Agreed. The more stuff like dragons that they stick in it, it's just like icing / perfection.
I'm not suggesting that a dragon go out and destroy a village every week.
Here's the cool part of it is, it's just like the telephone game. Maybe a dragon came down and stole some cows and smashed a barn. But by the time you hear about it in the tavern, and Colligan the Black just leveled the capital.
And it goes even deeper than that. Somebody may have spilt a freaking lantern and burned a town to the ground. And by the time it got to your tavern, a dragon raised it.
A dragon burned it. No, and that's and I may be the one spreading those rumors. I'm just saying, I may be a rumor monger.
But the idea that the history, the people, the NPCs, and the characters in the game are aware of is that maybe sometime in the past dragons did fly around.
Right.
Maybe that was a thing. Haven't been seen or heard of, however long. But they did once exist. They're part of the lore. They're part of our history.
Right. The mythos.
And so, when kings build their castles, they put stone dragon heads out front because it's part of the lore. In our history, there's no proof that dragons ever really existed, but we came up with them.
It's true.
Because they were because you know what I mean?
Sure.
Whether they found dinosaur bones and thought they were dragons, whatever the cause was, they're in our DNA. We grow up looking at them thinking that is amazing. Unicorns are amazing. Dragons are amazing. All of this stuff that probably did not exist.
You made me think of something.
Go ahead.
No, I don't want to stomp on you. I'll wait till you're done with your point.
I was just going to say, but when we get into a world like this and we're playing in it, in the back of our minds, it's always that little thing is always there that, you know, in those mountains way over there that we've never been to, there could be a dragon living under there somewhere, or up there somewhere that we've just, you know, hasn't been heard from in centuries, but it could be there.
I love that. Here's this got me thinking on something. I want to run this by you. I said I want to be a rumor monger.
You're not alone.
But back to information being an entity, right?
Right.
NPCs, how do I say this? Okay, I'm out in the woods collecting my grubs. I'm digging in the dirt collecting my grubs, right?
Right.
I'm sitting there, I'm chilling, and I see a dillo bear crashing through the forest off in the distance.
All right.
Okay, so I go back to town, and now I have dillo bear as a thing I can talk about to the NPCs. Like I could say, I could type it out and say to this NPC, I see a dillo bear or I see a dragon, but they don't give a shit because the game engine knows that I have never seen, I did not see a dillo bear or a dragon. Now this comes down to lying and things like that, and I get that. But what I'm saying is, until I actually see a dillo bear, I cannot spread the rumor of a dillo bear.
I didn't realize that.
No, I'm not saying this is true. I'm speculating on information being an entity and rumors. You can't just make up a rumor. You got to have enough stuff to build it off of. There has to be enough truth to make the lie believable. Otherwise, they just write it off as I'm the raving guy coming through town talking about dragons. I'm just it'll get no traction.
Right.
But if I actually find something, like let's say I'm out there and I find those dinosaur bones or whatever, and now all of a sudden I can talk about dragons to NPCs. And so now I can shape the narrative on that when I spread the information. And then whether it's spread or not depends on my skill and what other pieces of information I can tie with it. Does it make sense?
It does.
The concept of what I'm saying, not necessarily that specific example.
I'm having a hard time with the game knowing that you noticed the bear, but I get what you're saying.
Like you can't just make like I can take any. It's always a thing. Out of game knowledge versus in game knowledge. It's always from pen and paper games to MMOs.
Right.
Like people can Google right now how to blacksmith a sword, and have that out of game knowledge, not necessarily the skill or ability. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But the character, no matter what, doesn't, because his blacksmithing skill is 0. And so just apply. Yeah, I know I'm making sense in my head.
No, what you're trying to say is very ethereal and very hard to grasp hold of.
But you can't just randomly spread rumors from our world unless you can actually talk about it in a way that is tangible in the game.
Let's drop this down to basic things. If you start telling people that you saw the baker steal from the smith,
okay,
you don't have to have seen that. But that is a rumor that you could start and spread. That was my understanding.
No, and that's what I'm saying. But because I know the baker and the smith, those are two things I can use as actual information that's transferable.
Okay.
Now, if I never met the baker and smith, I can't do that. And it's
how does the game determine that you actually saw the dillo bear?
Maybe you clicked on it.
I'm not trying to make this difficult.
No. I'm saying it's not just that I was in proximity with it, but if I consider it, /con, and I know that this isn't about /con. What would you like your tombstone to say? Type deal. I mean, like, I actually see that, and I'm like, what is that? And I click on it, you know what I'm saying? And I examine, and it's, and it says...
So I thought these things weren't something... I thought you couldn't click on things.
I mean, you have to be able to click on things in some way, shape, or form.
Why?
I know that, like, to dig in the ground, you're going to click on the ground.
Right, I know you can click on the ground, but you're not targeting the ground when you click on it. You're just using the tool in your hand.
I don't know.
It's like a tree. You got an axe, you walk up to a tree. You're not targeting that tree. You're just swinging your axe at it. I mean, if you can click on things, that solves the problem 100%.
100%. But here's my point, and now I'm digressing from my point. Here's my next point, which is if you can't click on things that aren't around you, how do you examine or see anything and get input on what it is?
I don't know.
Like information. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think there has to be a way where you click on things you're looking at. And
no, I agree with you that's because that is a part of every game. I'm just saying that I thought that was not part of this game.
I can't verify or deny that.
But it makes sense, because if you're going up to harvest, say, a plant that's on the ground, I mean, I guess you got
your visual clues, obviously. If you were looking for white flowers, then you can see those in the distance or whatever. and maybe something as simple as you click on whatever entity you're trying to click on. Of course, distance is going to matter on how much information you can get. You can't click on it and get all the information you could if you went up to it with a magnifying glass and inspected the whole thing.
I just always assumed that you were using a technique in the vicinity, like a close proximity, of what that technique requires, like harvesting a plant, and then the game mechanics would harvest the plant if it's there. If you tried to use the technique, the plant's not there, then you don't do anything. It only acts when you're close to it, but you don't actually click on it. I don't know where I got this thought.
But I do not think they can make something where you cannot examine stuff from a distance. If it's all visual, I just don't see that working. I mean, to prove me wrong, but you know what I'm saying? You're sneaking through a house to your thief.
No, this is a deep hole, man.
Sneaking through a house as a thief, you don't have to you want to look around the room and see what you want to steal. You don't want to have to get up next to it. I mean, obviously the final choice is getting up next to it to say whether you actually want to take it. But you want to be able to scan the room and say, that's worth grabbing, I need to move quickly. Okay, I'm grabbing. Oh, nope, it's not. Okay, I'm moving to this. And if you can't do that unless you walk up to it, I don't know. And maybe they're saying, well, just visually you look around and you get your visual clues and then go from there. And maybe that's it. But then that does seem to limit you on information as an entity. Because again, if you just see the dillo bear is just in your vicinity, how does it register that as something you can talk about? Going full circle back to the information as an entity.
All of this is academic. 100%, because we have no idea if that's what's needed. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because it's not like dillo bears are going to be something that nobody's ever heard of.
Right.
Use an animal that's actually in the game. You see a wild fox a lot.
Right.
And you go back to the people know what these animals are because they're part of the history.
No, again, you're right. And so maybe that's where I'm getting at fantastically. Like you can make up mundane rumors. There's an otter bear in the woods.
That is a mundane rumor, correct.
But making up a fantastical rumor like there's a dragon in the woods is something that's much less believable by the populace and would just make you a madman. You know, dragons don't exist.
So what if someone took that extra step and did things to make it look like what they're trying to pass off as real that they saw happened?
So example of they're trying to convince people there's a dragon in the woods. Go. No, I'm saying.
Well, you could you go into the trees, you knock down a bunch of stuff, chop down some trees or whatever, and say this is where it landed. Like you could take people back to it and say this is where it landed.
But don't you think people would look and say, yeah?
No, it's going to be obvious. I agree.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I'm getting. But the other part is how much that adds anything to the game. As far as I don't know, dude. My brain hurts.
Information as an asset in the game is really hard to comprehend when we don't have it in front of us to look at. So it's difficult to wrap our minds around what can we do. How can we falsify information?
How can we manipulate? How can we manipulate?
For our benefit or just for our amusement?
How do I be a rumor monger, damn it?
Right. No, you're not the only person to have brought this up to me personally.
Gotcha.
There are other people who it's one of the things they want to do badly.
And that's what I love is if information is an entity, you know, like back it up a step and say, okay, you want to have the Sword of Ages. I'm making up the most generic thing I can think of.
Okay.
And so there's this, you start researching the lore, you know what I'm saying? You find out, well, the hilt of the Sword of Ages was lost at this, you know, it was buried and hidden by this sect of priests over in this mountain range. And so you track down the clues and you go track down the hilt of the Sword of Ages. And it's a long quest and a fun story for you and your friends. And then you do more research and stuff and clues and story engine, whatever you want to be. But you got these long quest lines, right?
Okay.
And that's a defined quest. It's got levels and things like that you're chasing. And I'm not saying any of that'll be in this game. I'm just saying standard fare of role-playing games is the quest for the parts to make the weapon. And I don't see why that same system can't apply to you. Like your ultimate goal is to spread rumors of a dragon for whatever reason.
Right.
Well, then you got this, hey, I got this, you find this clue that says, hey, there was this thing about dragons that was over in this area. And so you go and do the quest and go to that sect of priests in those mountains and find out that piece of information. And now you actually have that piece of information that you can share. But you can also, you determine how you share it, the twist you put on it. Does that make sense? And so it's the same type of concept. It's just collecting items. The information is an item. And until you collect it, you can't spread it. Now
you're saying you can't just make things up.
That's what I'm saying, is that you have to... Now then, which comes back to, and this is full circle and the rabbit hole is deep, it comes back to if other people have done this and then the information gets to you, you know, does that then become something you can share and shape? Or is it strictly determined by what they spread? But dude, it's just... Let me melt it down to this, which is if information is an entity... is something that can be passed from NPC to player. It's either malleable or immalleable. In other words, you can either share what you know is truth or you get to shape it, right?
Okay.
Option A or option B. I don't really see anything in between. if you can only share truth, then all information is great.
Right.
But if you can share lies, then why can't you just make up anything? And so that's where I have the disconnect on how it's going to work.
Can I run into town screaming there's a dragon in the woods to the south and
absolutely
have people pick it up?
Well, that part is the unknown part.
Right, that's the unknown part. I can do that all day long.
Right, and people will be like, oh, here comes Patch again.
Does it make any difference?
Right.
Is an NPC going to be like, Patch saw a dragon? Is he going to start spreading that around? Or are they just going to ignore me because... I say that every day.
This is an interesting conversation. I'm enjoying it because, I mean, if people can just spread what they want, like if you coming into town screaming there's a dragon can be picked up by the NPCs and player characters, I mean, obviously the player characters, but by the NPCs and actually be spread, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Then the chaos of information is going to be insane.
Well, that's why the scripts and the AI for the NPCs has, I mean, there has to be some kind of filter on there. They're not just going to pick up everything people say and start spreading it around. But, you know what I mean? They're not just going to be parroting everything they hear.
But how much is going to be chaos? How much until it is chaos of lack of just made up shit? I mean, we're talking me, you, and a few other people, and three of us have interest. You know, like out of the four,
it's just spreading lies.
Yeah, and just spreading lies, just for the fun of it.
Giggles. Yep.
Yeah.
No, I get it.
To sit in the tavern and spin a yarn that has no basis in reality. Which I guess could make for an interesting world as you track down. I mean, maybe that's what adventurers do is they hear these rumors and start tracking them down.
No, that could get really out of hand.
That could get ugly fast in the world, or it could be awesome. But that, again, it goes back to how much is malleable and how much is, the veracity of any given rumor. I do.
But look at the real world. How many lies do we believe every single day?
Every day, yeah.
You know what I mean? How much crap do we get fed by the news or whatever? This
one simple trick.
Yeah, it is one little kernel of truth surrounded by sensationalism.
Game companies hate this one. Banks don't want you to know.
Car manufacturers don't want you to know.
Don't want you to know.
But no, I mean, and how much of that bogs down the game? If every NPC is just spitting out stuff that's not true, at what point does it become useless that the NPCs spread knowledge at all because none of it's true?
Right. That's my. I guess that really captures what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
For the system to matter, it has to matter, and if it's just if it doesn't matter, dude, there has to skill has to come into it, obviously.
No, and didn't they say that the abilities to be able to tell or not tell, but
yeah.
Have an idea. How did we get off the subject of dragons?
The dragons led to this dragon.
We were supposed to talk about dragons for like 20 minutes, and then this is what happens.
Yeah.
There will be dragons in this game. I don't care what they call them. They are dragons.
No.
Whether or not we actually see one, probably slim.
So I'm saying final topic.
Does Night of the Dragons happen in year 5 anniversary?
I think here's my prediction. You want a prediction?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, because this just seems like too perfect. Honestly, the way they're setting it up, we're starting in a low fantasy world where magic is myth, but did exist. Dragons, we don't know if they actually exist or if they're just myth.
Right.
But in the mythos, they have existed, and I think that the 10-year story arc is straight up the unlocking of magic and dragons and demons and other realms, and I think the 10-year story arc is the transformation from a low fantasy to high fantasy world.
Right. The game will start mundane, and over the course of the story, over the course of the 10-year run, it will become more and more fantastical.
Yes, I agree with that. And it's just too perfect. It's too beautiful. Why not?
Yeah. No, there's no reason not to do it.
That's just
you've got your mythical golden age of history where magic and dragons and all that stuff was all over the place, and then you've got the toil and the mud and the ugliness of the current world, but there's like an awakening. I mean, it's moving that direction again.
No, but I'm excited about it, and when it happens, like you said, the Night of the Dragons, like when a server actually completes enough of the story to. Holy crap, someone broke open the crypt and the dragons have unleashed themselves on the world.
poured out.
Yeah, or even just 5 dragons, and they went and took up their residencies where they used to be before they were banished in the Golden Age. You know, whatever. Insert whatever fantastical story that we can sit around the tavern and hear while we make our paper.
You just imagine that. We're sitting in the freaking mill. We're just making paper, whatever, cutting boards, and then that sound. Step outside and look up.
Yeah, the
sun
massive
is
roar.
blotted out.
I'm not going to try and do a dragon roar ever again.
Yeah, let's not have that.
Moving on from the dragons is the next, probably second most fantastical creature talked about on the Discord forums, and that's the vampires.
Sort of.
Sort of?
Yeah, sort of.
Hit me.
They're not real vampires. They're not blood drinking, biting vampires.
So they're not the traditional Vlad the Impaler Dracula.
Right. They're not your standard Eastern European, come up out of the ground after they've died, start drinking people's blood type vampire.
Okay. Yeah, you don't like that, I guess?
Not a fan of vampires. That ship sailed a long time ago for me. I drew the line at Anne Rice, and I'm done after that. No, I love the idea of this monster, right? The idea that there is an entity that will drain your life just by its presence being around you. It feeds off of basically your soul.
No, and that's exactly how they describe it on the servers. The devs have talked about it. And so my question to you is, vampires, do they suck your soul? Does that mean that your lifespan is shrunk when vampires are around?
That is the way I took it.
That's the way it reads.
Yeah.
But does that seem trolly to you?
Define trolly.
Well, will it be annoying to you to have a character that you really worked hard on, you've kept him alive, you've got his skills to where you want him, and you're getting ready to enjoy his life, the golden age of his life, right?
Right.
And he gets that lifespan that you're wanting to enjoy before that guy dies is shortened by this creature.
I'm having trouble with your problem with this.
It's not really. I have no problem with other players like coming and killing me.
Right. You have no problem with a monster catching you in the woods and taking you out.
Right, because those things are in my control. Within reason.
Right.
Putting myself in those situations, it's just but a vampire that can just suck your soul is not within my control within reason. I don't know. I really don't have a problem with it. I think vampires. Excuse me. Vampires are cool, but the idea of a soul-sucking creature is cool.
Do you not see the fun in one of these creatures being in an area and then the adventure or story of trying to track it down and
kill it? No, that has a high amount of interest to me. What I really like is maybe even if the vampire sucks your soul, right? Well, if you go and destroy the vampire, then everybody gets their soul back.
That's interesting.
To me, that gives a reason besides just quit sucking my soul. But massive.
Did they talk about whether or not this thing has to be does it have to touch you to do this?
They don't. There's nothing. It's all.
It's all conjecture.
Yeah, I don't know if they have to sneak in while you're sleeping and hover above the.
That's what I'm saying. If they have to touch you, if they have to be that close to you to do it, then I'm not.
Bottom line is,
it's just another monster.
Bottom line is, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's going to make for cool storytelling. I do like the idea of getting your soul that's been sucked back if you manage to kill it. Because then you really want to kill it.
No, yeah, no doubt.
And then there'll be the people who are like, no, it's okay. It's a vampire. We should learn to love it. We should learn to talk to it.
I'm wondering, how do they know? Is it something you're going to be able to see on your character sheet? How do you know? Do you just, live for a week and then die because there's a vampire living under your house and you just didn't know it?
Or just someone sneaking in your window each night and sucking a little bit more of your soul until...
You know what I mean?
Surely there's something that'll say you woke up feeling drained and you're like, what the fuck? Or you get a buff that says tired and exhausted even though you slept. And no matter what you do as far as eating and sleeping, it's not working.
Honestly, I'm wondering if they mean that it's sucking your lifespan.
I don't know. We don't know. When they talk about soul, though, they're pretty explicit. They're saying a creature that sucks your soul. But that, I
And
mean,
they're-
that leads to storytelling. If a buff appears that says exhausted, maybe the first week of vampires sucking on you, it says exhausted. Then the second week it says,
Now, if this is something that affects your stamina on a daily basis, that's fine.
no, because you can imagine the rumors that spread. Like, let's say there's a normal mundane disease breaks out somewhere.
Right.
And people are tired and stuff and got the buff showing up saying exhausted. And they're like, there's a vampire in our midst. And Van Helsing's coming down from the Capitol, hunting all around and garlic hanging.
What if this is just a troll? What if there isn't a soul-sucking vampire they're going to put in this game? What if there is a disease that causes all of these things, but history says that when these things start happening, it's a vampire?
No, that would be a very... I don't know if that's a good... it's a good troll. I don't know if I want that to be the case. No.
Now, but they don't go into a lot of detail about this. I mean, it was
a single paragraph.
Yeah, it's very peripheral. It's very, this is what we're working on kind of thing. They don't talk about whether or not players can become vampires. They don't talk about any of that kind of stuff.
And this goes back to my dragons thing, which is this world. Here's the world. Here's the rules. Go have fun. If vampires are in it, that's just another bonus, more icing on the cake.
Right.
I hope they are. I want to go hunt them.
It sounded like you weren't. It sounded like you were really irritated by the thought of this thing being in the game.
I am very irritated by the thought of a vampire shortening my guy's lifespan. I am very irritated by that. But I'm in-game irritated.
Talking about mechanics-wise, it could be one of those things where, like you said, maybe a little thing that tells you you're exhausted, and then nothing you do gets rid of the exhaustion, right?
Right.
And then, if you don't do anything about it over a period of time, then you start losing soul. But if you can do something about it before it moves to like the next stage,
sure,
then you don't lose soul.
Or how about this? Like let's say you're the one you're the vampire. Okay, for whatever story way it makes you happen to become the vampire. And so this gives you a quest of immortality or whatever it is, which means you have to suck so much soul. I'm making stuff up because traditionally vampires are immortal, you know what I mean? But the hunger or whatever you want to say, you've got to suck so much soul. So it becomes about your controlling your greed. So if you go in and if you spend the time and you only sap a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, then you don't really fill up your bar or you start completing your quest, but no one really notices. So vampires exist and can run around as long as they control themselves, right?
Right.
But it's the point of, but if they don't really give a shit, then they can be like, level 11. And then the village is waking up like, what the fuck? Yeah, I'm tired, at first. And then if you don't control yourself, then you're noticeable, and there's lots of clues left around that it's actually the real deal. To me, that's a cool story.
That is a cool story. Do you think that this is something player characters should be able to be infected with? I say infected. However, they feed on souls because they have no soul kind of thing. Is this something that's going to happen to players?
I do think this is something that's going to happen to players. I do. I think it's going to be a talent almost. And I don't even know if that's the right word for it, but...
No, I know what you're trying to say.
I think that this is going to be on the story how everybody gets a destiny. And certain people are going to follow their destiny, and it's going to give them a choice to become a vampire at some point. Very rare.
No, I get it.
And that to me is extremely cool. After they become a vampire, it becomes about controlling themselves and staying hidden lest they be killed. And who wouldn't want to kill people that are shortening your lifespan?
I just don't want it to turn into that kingdom over there is nothing but vampires.
So I think that only the people that have that destiny can be turned. And that may be something that be part of your vampiric quest, is to find other people with that destiny.
Yeah, I would be okay with that.
And that's how I would control it.
There are too many people in our world
that want to be vampires.
With vampires.
That want to be vampires. No, there would be an entire vampire kingdom if you could just bite people and turn them. Drain them, fill them with blood, turn them.
No, it has got to be mechanically restricted by the game.
Well, the other thing is like they have to suck souls to survive, or not survive, but to keep from going into torpor or whatever term you want to use, whatever. But can you imagine that your actual vampire character be going into torpor, and so you have to go play another character for
because he's asleep
in-game years while he sleeps? It's 5 weeks in torpor. It's 5 years of sleep. But no. But if two vampires get together, then they're automatically everybody's waking up at level 2. You know what I'm saying? Just the next day. If 3 vampires are together, then the whole place is just drained. And I don't know about area effect draining, you know, but for them to feed and be functioning, they have to feed that much. And so they just can't remain hidden because of their...
This sounds like a city problem to me.
No, there's no doubt. And
You know what I mean?
again, you go traditionally to vampire mythos, they usually hide in large populations for that reason.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Really, when we break it down, it's kind of really cool.
No, it does. The idea that things like this are going to be put in the game and that our stories will evolve around them, assuming somebody in our vicinity has this. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we talked about dragons and vampires. Can you imagine all the crap that they have behind the scenes that they're working on that's going to be so much cooler?
No doubt. And I mean, to me, a part is religion. You know, the fact that this world has a mythos and it has a religion, and in game, you know, because there's always, you know, go back to WoW and EQ, there's always been gods and stuff, but it never made a fuck.
Never.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I follow Soul Yusek Rogue.
I'm the cleric of so-and-so, and I've got the same healing spells as everybody else.
But in this world, it can actually matter. You know, and people are going to be, like, I think there's going to be fervent followers of religions
Inquisitions.
pushing them on other people and actual, and I know racism is a terrible thing in our world, judging, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But in a game world, racism is really cool for drama, and I'm sure there'll be people who think their race is better than other people, and I mean, it's just as far as dramatic storytelling, you can't get better than what they're building.
No, you can't.
All right, brother.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Oh, a lot. I think I'm going to, well, anyway, let's do an outro.
All right, we are Vendor Trash.
Thanks for listening. If there's something you want to hear us discuss, talk about, rip apart, speculate, please leave a comment.
All right.
You can find us
at Vendor Trash 27 Twitter. You can find us at Vendor Trash 27 on Facebook, and we are Vendor Trash YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
I froze.
You
said the exact same thing I was going to say, and
we're so good at outros.
I came up blank, just 100% blank.
I can't wait to leave that on the end of the next one.